want to report to the public that government, that there are government workers who have they've gone to the Magistrates Court in Perth and they took a VRO out of me to stop me having contact with my brother David and to stop me legally having contact with my brother David. I've done a bit of broadcasting already about that. But what I would like to say is that they did this behind my back. I wasn't even in the hearing and I was at home and the next thing the police arrived to my house and they served a VRO out on me. It's been done by on the document which I showed before, it doesn't have the applicant's name and it doesn't even have the name of the magistrate on there. It's just got a signature and a date and the order, and it says it's been taken out on for the benefit of David Van Lieshout, who is my brother and who I have been broadcasting for quite a number of months now, that objecting to my practice, my objection to the practice of psychiatry and what they're doing to my brother, drugging him with chemical compounds for over 10 years now, and that they've stolen his money, and that more than $64,000, and that the people, there are lots of people who are doing this. They are murdering my brother, and if they don't stop, they are engaging enormous amounts of cruelty against my brother, and now they're engaging in cruelty against me by stopping me legally having contact with him. And all I've been doing is talking about to the public about how they are murdering him with the chemical compounds that they give. It's about 15 years, I think, now. I can't get the records. We've tried to get the records. They just cover everything up. So I want to tell the public this is what they've done. They've done it to stop me legally having contact with David, and they've done it to cause defamation to me. They are causing defamation to me. I rang up the Magistrates Court and asked, well, who has done it, because there's no name on the document of the applicant. And I was told it was done by the Public Trust, and now I've been told that it's been done by Laurie Lehman-Bywick, who the President of the State Administrative Tribunal, J.A. Cheney. I consider him to be very corrupt, and there is a very big corruption ring going on in regards to the practice of psychiatry. The politicians allowing them to murder people, the judges allowing them to murder people, covering it up, and also stealing of millions of dollars of people's assets and money through the Public Trust by putting them on the Public Trust. And that's what they've done to David, despite my family's objection for months and months and months. So Cheney is responsible for this, and the staff member in the Public Advocate behind my back. And I have been upset with a few people, and I admit that are murdering my brother, because you're murdering my brother and you've stolen all of his money and you've taken his car keys off him and his licence off him. And now I've found out that he was put in hospital recently, but for about 8 weeks I haven't been able to have contact with him because they've put him in hospital, I found out. And it's because of the drugging, and they're murdering him. They are. And they didn't tell the family that he was put in hospital, in Armidale Hospital. They didn't tell the family. None of us were told. And I found out, in a way I found out, the treatments, the way that they're treating, the cruelty for which they're treating my brother is going to result in his death. It will result, if they don't stop it, it will result in his death. Because you can imagine that you're being drugged against your will, because he's been drugged for so long that he's under slavery. They are totally controlling his life. It's a slavery system that they have going. And can imagine that he's totally under their control for so many years. They make him feel like rubbish. And he's getting sicker and sicker, and it's because of their treatments. It's because of the way they treat him. If you have been drugged for years and years with chemical compounds, and then you have all of your assets stolen from you, out of your control, stolen from you, your money, over $64,000, and have your car keys taken away from you, and have your licence taken away from you, and have your job taken away from you for so long, and for them, and to stop you from having contact with your family, with your sister, me. If somebody did this to you to stop you having contact with your family, you would die. You would die. And I think that's what happens. They feel like they get abandoned by the family. But the rights of my brother. I'm fighting for his life and for all those things to be returned to him. And what they did behind my back, they went to the magistrate's court and they took a VRO out on me. They took a VRO. I'm not a violent person. I am a peace-promoting, peace-loving person. I write literature about the Christian faith. I articulate for people's rights in society, human rights. And that magistrate did it without me even being there. And I've got the name of the magistrate. There's a hearing on the 29th of May. If they don't cancel that order, I'm going to expose every single judge and magistrate involved in this and name you and continue until your employment is terminated. Because you don't have a right to do this to anybody behind their back. And those cowards, the president of that State Administrative Tribunal was involved, J.A. Cheney. He's a murderer and a thief. And he's now engaging in defamation of me. And that public advocate, Laurie Lehman-Byberg, went to the magistrate's court behind my back and took a VRO out of me to intimidate me, to stop me having contact with David, to intimidate me and to cause defamation to me. And the whole world now will know about it. I'm happy to say. I'm happy to report this to everybody. That I don't deserve this. The Triple C is not helping our family or helping me. The police aren't helping me either, because I've made 4 reports to the police, Commissioner of Police, and the Corruption and Crime Commission. So you're helping them. If you continue to help them, you are supporting them murdering my brother and destroying the relationship between myself and my brother David. Making me out to be a violent person, which I'm not. And if I've been upset with a few people, you deserve it. It's understandable and you deserve it because you are murdering my brother and you've stolen all his assets and money. And I make an appeal to the banks of Australia as well. That one bank, my bank, and one branch that I went into, told me, the bank told me that one branch alone in just one bank has 25 people under the public trust. 25. So when you see homeless people in the street, trapped under the psychiatric system, the government has done it to them. They're controlling their assets and their money. And the bank manager told me, yeah, they have like $20 put in their account every 2 days, and they come in just to get money just for food. So there's government politicians, judges, government workers, and other workers who are forcing people into poverty, murdering them with their treatments, slavery, a slavery system, and causing them to be on the street homeless because they're controlling their money and their pensions are coming from the Social Security to the public trust. They're controlling their stolen their assets and money. And now forgive me if I get upset and emotional about this issue. But the truth of the matter is there's not a lot of people that are employed by the taxpayer. Taxpayer-funded workers who are doing this to me and my brother, David, and just allowing this to go on, and causing defamation to me, stopping me having contact with him legally. You know, that's just really evil what they're doing. It's cruel and it's evil. Also what I've discovered, I've done an enormous amount of research now, probably going back about 18 months, a year and a half. And the more you look into it, the more you understand the corrupt, what they're doing to people. The public trust, for example. I spoke to a doctor the other day at the WA Law Week, and she told me, she's an experienced doctor, she told me that the whole mental health system was, that it was really criminal, that what they're doing is just shocking. So there are other people talking about it. Now, one bank, this is in Fremantle, one branch of one bank. Now this bank has 1,100 branches throughout Australia. One branch in one bank told me, the manager told me, 25 people on a public trust, 25 people in that one branch alone of one bank. 25 people in one branch are under the public trust, which means the president of the State Administrative Tribunal, Cheney, J.A. Cheney, and the other presiding members there have destroyed these people's ability to control their own money and assets. That's a form of slavery for sure, there's no question about it. And the bank managers are telling me to keep fighting it because the society has to stop doing this and it has to change. And that the people come in, they're on like $20, put $20 is put in their account every 2 days or something like that, so they're living on $100 a week. Their pension's going straight from the social security not to the person themselves but to the public trust who's controlling their money, forcing them to live on, sometimes less than $100 a week. Now that's criminal to do that to people. They are stealing people's assets and money, and they are forcing them to be homeless. When you see people around homeless, probably 9 out of 10 of them, I would say, almost for certain, that they are under the psychiatric system, that they've had all their assets and money stolen from them, and that they are there because of the government, because of the politicians and the judges and the psychiatrists murdering people and stealing their assets and money. And this is the truth. This is the absolute truth. So I'm asking the banks throughout Australia, bank managers, if you have people in the public trust, the government is doing this to our citizens, Australian citizens and West Australian citizens. And it's so corrupt that it's almost unbelievable, but it is true that they are murdering people and stealing their assets. And the government is doing it. The politicians are responsible. 59 politicians in West Australia, the lower house and the upper house politicians, because they've been letting it go on and on and on. The judges are letting the psychiatrists do it, and the psychiatrists, of course, and the people that work in the mental health system that, they get the police to drag people out of their homes and take them to a psychiatric unit, a hospital, drug them and ship them off to grey lanes. It's absolutely criminal. It's just so evil. It is so evil what they do. It is almost beyond comprehension. Murdering people and stealing their assets. When you see people on the street, 9 times out of 10, they are there because the government is forced them there. They are controlling their assets and money. Now, there has to be some accountability. There has to be accountability and responsibility. The President of the State Administrative Tribunal, J.A. Cheney, not should only lose his job, he should be prosecuted. Because this has been done to thousands of people. And also the judges that are aware that people are murdered in psychiatric hospitals. Greylands. I will free all of those people, demolish that building, and have a big memorial set up. That's what I will do. And a royal commission that goes back 50, 100 years in every psychiatric hospital that we've had in Western Australia, to start with, to find out how many dead people, thousands of dead people. My anticipation is about 10,000 who've had their lives destroyed. And what about the people who have survived, who are living on the street because their money's been controlled by the public trust and they're being drugged at the taxpayer's expense? This is a very serious problem we have, and it's been going on for a long time. They've been doing this all over the world for 200 years, murdering people and stealing their assets and their money. The government has been allowing them to do it and helping them do it. Politicians and judges. And I'm not going to stop until the practice of psychiatry money back to the people that it belongs to, that they are controlling their own money, because it is a slavery system. That they control their own money, and that the money that's coming from Social Security for these thousands of people in our society, thousands of Australian citizens, crimes against humanity, that's my view, that the Social Security money is being put into their name, their own name, the banks, that the Social Security money, pension, whatever they get, to the person's name in the public trust gets abolished, their work. It's criminal. How can their politicians and the judges allow this to go on, continue? You're giving people pensions, and they're not getting that money because it's being controlled by the public trust. So you're giving it to people. Are you intentionally doing this to poor people? You're intentionally doing this to people who are vulnerable, elderly people who are vulnerable in our society, and people that are possibly not well, have difficulties with their mental health. But we don't know the reasons. You know, it doesn't matter what you say about other people. What you're doing is criminal. It's absolutely criminal. You're murderers, and you're murdering people, and you're stealing their assets. So you're giving them pensions, and the public trust is under the Attorney General's office, Christian Porter in Western Australia. Public trust comes under the Attorney General's office in Western Australia, Christian Porter. And what your government is doing, what your department is doing, is stealing people's assets and money. They end up in prison or a psychiatric unit or dead, or they end up on the street, homeless. And that's what you're doing to my brother David. That's what you're doing to my brother David. So unless it stops, I'll continue to expose every single one of you until there's justice. And it's just cruelty. It's pure cruelty, and it's criminal. It's so criminal. And the God of heaven and earth, and the God of the Bible, the God that I serve, and Jesus Christ, His Son, the God that I serve, and Jesus, is going to judge every single one of you for this. Every single one of you. And you're not going to get away with it. So you can stop doing it. You can stop crippling the poor people. You can stop murdering the poor people and stealing their assets and money, and drugging them to death and giving them disgusting treatments like psychosurgery and electric shock, and drugging people with chemical compounds, depriving them of their liberty, locking them up against their will, forcing them to slavery, or forcing them to poverty, or forcing them to homelessness and suicide, because that's what you do. That's what you're doing. This is a political ideological problem. It's a power struggle between the rich oppressing the poor. The God of the Bible that I serve says that if you oppress the poor, that is very serious sin. So I'm asking the banks as well to release these people and to ignore the orders coming from this corrupt judge in the State Administrative Tribunal, J.A. Cheney, and the orders coming from the State Administrative Tribunal. It's total corruption to give the government authority to control these poor people's money, the little money that they're given, and the orders that are given over to the public trust, because it deliberately did it to my family, deliberately did it to David, and now they've got a VRO and on me to stop me having contact. How evil is it? How evil is it what they're doing? It is so evil. I've never experienced this level of evil before in my life. I've not experienced it, and my family's not experienced it. My brother certainly hasn't experienced it, but you know, and evil gets me, destroying the family, because you think that you can get away with and do what you want, but you can't. You know, I know that the only comfort that I have is that the God of heaven and earth that I serve is going to judge you and condemn you if you don't repent. If you don't stop it, if you don't stop doing it, if you don't repent, you will be thrown in hell. That's the only comfort that I have. If I can't stop you murdering my brother and have his assets and money returned and his licence and his car keys, if I can't stop it, you will go to hell. There's no question of what you've done to my family, what you're doing to me now, and what you're doing to my brother David. It's the only comfort that I have. To all the people involved in this, that the Lord Jesus is on my side, and that that I will never forgive you, that I won't forgive you for what you've done unless you stop it, unless you stop and you take this VRO against me so I can see my brother, David. If it doesn't stop, I'm not ever going to because the Christians are going to judge the world. That's what the Bible says. And I have the authority given to me by Christ to forgive you or not to forgive you. And if you don't stop this, I will not forgive you and you will end up in hell. That's the only comfort that I have. But I'm hoping that it will stop. I'm hoping that I will be able to see my brother. So what I want is my brother, you just stop drugging my brother with chemical compounds, to give his freedom back to him, to give his money back to him, to give his pension back to him, to give his licence back to him, which you've stolen, and to give his car keys back to him. And his car, which you've stolen, car keys, wouldn't even give it to the family. And to take this VRO off me, to stop me having, which is stopping me having contact with my brother David, and to apologise to me in writing because you're causing defamation. That's what I want. You know. And then maybe I can forgive you, maybe. I don't know. We should provide damages, economic damages to my brother and to myself for what you're doing, the suffering you've put me through, and my brother, and my family, and the defamation you've perpetuated against my family, the practice of psychiatry, because you're evil. You are evil. I don't care what you say about my family or other people. My beautiful mother, my beautiful, kind, beautiful, wonderful mother, who was married to my father for 53 years and had 9 children, and all of us are born in the state of Western Australia. And the defamation that you engaged against my mother, who you drugged for 30 years on Modicate. You drugged my mother for 30 years on Modicate. You are evil. You are evil, and I hope you go to hell. I really do. Because I don't think I can forgive what you're doing to my family. Atheist practitioners who will rot in hell if they don't repent from what they do. That's the only comfort that I have as a Christian teacher, as a Christian. And you just, you know, you can go to hell. That's it. That's what you do. You rip big families apart. Big families. You destroy them. That's what atheist practitioners like that do. Murder people and rip families apart. You're good at it, aren't you? Steal people's assets and money. Well, I'm sure there's going to be a few people going to hell because of it. Quite a lot, actually. I'm sorry this offends anybody, but the truth is there is a judgment coming into the world, and it's coming sooner than later, I think. What I want to talk about is the in regards to what the psychiatric profession is doing to my brother David, and to me in terms of stopping me having contact with him, and also in terms of, I want to talk about the diagnosis that psychiatrists give. What they do is they subjectively label people, and it's all subjective. There's no objective medical assessment testing in psychiatry, and what they do is they just label everybody. You know, they call them psychiatric disorders, but they've invented it subjectively. And the way they make it up, the way they made it up, is by voting, not by any sort of objective medical assessment or testing or anything like that. But they get together in a group and they talk about all these psychiatric disorders, which they invent subjectively, and then they talk about it, and then they have a vote. Does that go into the book? Yes. And that's how fraudulent it is. It is so fraudulent that they just invent it and make it up. And they label people. The whole human race, in the book that they have for labelling, the labelling is called a diagnostic and statistical manual, but it's really just a book of labels. They invent all of them, and they just label people, so they can say, oh, you've got this or that or this one, or whatever, bipolar or anxiety disorder or whatever. They just make up all these stupid names and stupid labels that mean absolutely nothing. And the worst one that they've made up is the one called schizophrenia. Okay, and that is the worst one that they made up, because the people that they label as schizophrenic are the most vulnerable people. So they pick on vulnerable people, elderly people and young people, and people that have difficulties communicating and can't stick up for themselves and can't fend for themselves, or people who are gentle people, soft-hearted people, people who are not assertive but are gentle people who may be perceived as weak by some other people, quiet people, people who maybe can't fend for themselves. So they really pick on people who just can't fend for themselves, and that's how evil they are. And the people that they label schizophrenic is they suffer the most because they apply the most force and control over them, and they drug them the most, and they treat them the way they treat people that they label like that is just criminal, in my view, and based on the evidence that I've seen. And the way that that invention came about was it was invented in 1911 by a Swiss psychiatrist called, his name was Eugene Bleuler, B-L-E-U-L-E-R, and it was invented in 1911. So this Swiss psychiatrist invented this psychiatric disorder, and essentially he just made it up. He didn't make it based on any objective medical assessment or testing, because none of their diagnosis is created that way. It's just his opinion. It's his opinion, and he wrote theories and literature about it, and he essentially just made observations about people and made it up. He made it up. It's his opinion, and he invented it, the conception of it. And based on his invention, based on his conception, based on his opinion about other people, subjective opinion, millions of people have been murdered around the world. That's how evil this practice is. His invention has resulted in the murder of that particular diagnosis, psychiatric diagnosis. Because there's no such thing as mental illness. There isn't. There is absolutely no such thing as mental illness. This is the biggest fraud that has ever been perpetuated on the human race. And they have invented psychiatric disorders to apply force and control over people's lives. And that's what they've done, and it's very evil what they've done. It's their subjective opinion about other people, and it's political and sociological, and it's political, sociological, and ideology. Okay, so they think they have the right to label the entire human race, and that's their opinion about the human race. So you're talking about 1% of the population. Let's say psychiatrists represent 1% of the population, the human population, throughout the whole world. So they, and in Australia, 1% of the population of Australia, if that, not even that, 0.5%. They represent 0.5% of the population. And they think they have a right to label subjectively, based on their opinion and based on no objective medical assessment or testing, they have a right to label the entire population with a psychiatric disorder, or as they say, mentally ill. And that's what they do. 1% of the population is labelling 99% of the population, murdering them with their treatments, stealing their assets and money, and causing enormous amount of suffering in our society. And that is why it has to be abolished. It has to be abolished. There has to be a Royal Commission, and there even has to be prosecutions, because they've murdered so many people over the past 200 years based on their labelling. They murder people with their treatments. So their subjective labelling, and schizophrenia is the worst, because they just drug them and drug them and drug them and drug them and drug them until they're dead. Those people who are not schizophrenic, there's no such thing as schizophrenia. There isn't. Or any other psychiatric disorder which has been invented. There absolutely isn't. It's the label that they've given, okay, 1% of the population, a label. So let's just say, there's the psychs there. Okay, they represent 1% of the population. And there's the population. Okay. Now, in this book that they use, in this book, that label, book of labels, that's what I'm going to call it. It's called a DSM, but it's just really a book of subjective labels about other humans, about other people. Their views, okay, that's their views, 1% of the population's views about 99% of the population. That's what it is. And what they're doing is they're murdering people, okay, crippling the health of people, including their mental health. They actually destroy people's health, and they destroy people's mental health as well. They absolutely do. So they're murdering people, they cripple people's health, including their mental health, and they steal people's assets and money. And in their book here, the DSM, they will label the entire human race as mentally ill, psychiatric disorder. That's what they do. That's what they'll do. That's what they can do. You see how fraudulent this is? It's so fraudulent. Why should we let 1% of the population destroy 99% of the population? So we have to turn it around, and 99% of the population, we say, no, 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 you're not allowed to practice anymore. That's it. You're abolished. Gone. You're stopped. You cannot practice psychiatry in Western Australia. That's where I wanted to start. And we can provide leadership to the rest of the nation in this area. And then we can provide leadership to the rest of the world. And have this practice stopped. Because what they have done is they have created, they are engaged in genocide. They are engaged in genocide, and they have created a holocaust. They have created a holocaust over the past 200 years throughout the world. That's how much murder they've engaged. That's how much they've destroyed the health of people, the people that are living, that have survived. And that's how much they have crippled people by stealing their assets and money. And they do that in Western Australia by the public trust. Okay. Now, who helps them? Who helps these psychs? The politicians and the judges are responsible. They're responsible for this as well. And all the people helping them, they get the police, you know, they get the police throughout the world. Now we've got the psychs, because of their treatments. The treatments are eugenics. They're engaged in eugenics. Okay, the politicians are letting them do it. At the moment, currently. The judges are letting them do it. And the doctors and nurses, the police are letting them do it. Triple C is letting them do it. And you get case workers, case managers. Okay, now you've got all these people. That's 1% of the population, if that. There's 99% of the population. Okay, let's say of all these people helping them, that's 95% of the population. Say these people make up nearly 5% of the population. There's another 1% there, maybe, and there's another 3% there. Okay, so you've got psychs, politicians, judges, doctors and nurses, police, triple C and case workers who help them. So maybe it's up to 10%. Let's just say that's 8% of the population. Case workers, triple C, police, doctors and nurses, and in that area. And then judges and politicians over there. And there's the psychs. So we're still doing this. Okay, you got 10% of the population. Okay, crippling 90% of the population. Labelling them subjectively, drugging them with chemical compounds, giving them ECT psychosurgery, which is torture, locking people up against their will, depriving them of their liberty, which is a crime in itself, and locking people up against their will, treating them like property, stealing their assets and money, potentially, and causing death, premature death. And, subjectively labelling 90% of the population. Wanting to take children off the parents, wanting to take children. So we've got children now, wanting to take children off the parents, drug children, sterilised children, ECT children, psychosurgery over the age of 12. That's what they wanted to do in the draft mental health.